We also have UFC Copenhagen this weekend. Jack Shore, a -150. Nolan Hernandez, a +130. Brandon Davis, -135 against Gija Chikadze, a +115. You have Alan Amedovsky, my bad, a -120. John Phillips, a +100. And then all the other fights have at least some familiar names.
Yep.
You got Lando Venata, +135 against Mark Jacasey. I'm probably more excited for that fight than any this weekend. That fight rules, Joe. Man, Jacasey looked like a world beater at one point. Lando Venata almost beat Tony Ferguson a couple times, knocked him silly. This is a great fight. I don't want to make a prediction. I just want to watch him throw down.
Yeah, and it's just crazy where it actually is on this card. I think it's second from the beginning. So any fight with Lando Venata, I think he was one of our original. Let's get a T-shirt made with Lando Venata's name on it, right? Because after that Tony Ferguson fight, we were all about Lando Venata, and he actually came to Toronto and with that spinning wheel kick took out who's it, John McDessie. So it's one of those things like, man, this guy's the real deal. Had it ups and downs since then, but and against Mark, it's going to be a fantastic fight, like you said. So this is a good card. It's got names on there, maybe not for the mainstream viewer, but definitely for those in the MMA bubble. This is a solid card, to say the least.
Yeah, it is. And you got Ismail Nardaev, a -185 against CR Baharzada, who came into the UFC with all kinds of hype, missed all kinds of time, and is still hanging around. I mean, the guy... I don't know how many times that I've mentioned on the show, well, he's not this 26, 27-year-old prospect anymore. I mean, 7.5 years ago, CR came in, and he was like 28. He got signed when he was, I think, 27, and he's only went 4-3 since then. But the fact that he has only fought 7 times in that period, that's rough. He missed 2.5 years at one point. Then, after he came back and won, he missed another 1.5 years. This is his first time fighting this year. I think that if CR Baharzada wants to ever get into the title picture, this is a must-win fight. If he wins this, all right, you could win. You could reel off 3 or 4 more, put yourself in the top 10, top 15 conversation. But if you don't have that 4 out of 5 to kind of lean on, and you've lost 2 in a row again, man, you're on the outside looking in. That being said, I think Nardaev is going to take this one. Also, you have Makhmed Maradov, a -150 against Alessio Di Chirico. That one is a lot closer than expected. I'm looking at Alex Oliveira and Nicholas Dalby. I think Alex Oliveira, if he's got his head on straight, takes that one. What are you looking for out of some of the fights that I just mentioned?
Well, I want to see how Ishmael does with Sayer because, Baharzada has been around for a long time, very experienced. But, as time, he's only 35. But as time goes on, there's generally some speed issues that take place. The power is always there. But, the Austrian Wonder Boy stands 6 foot, welterweight, 18-3. I mean, this guy's no joke. I know you're predicting him to win, but this guy is absolutely no joke. It remains to be seen how it all unfolds. Now, he's had, 2 fights in the UFC? He's 1-1. It's going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to this fight here. In terms of other fights, like you said, Cowboy Oliveira, Nicholas Dalby, man, I think there's a reason why that's the first fight on the main card. It's going to be just a bomb fest. So if Oliveira, like you said, smart, intelligent, fights his fight, but even still, if he gets into a gunslinger, so be it. Get her done.
You have Mark Madsen, not of NBA infamy, a -600 against Danilo Bellardo, a +450. I will not write anybody off. I cannot write anybody off as not having a chance because it seems like every time I do that, whether it's Betchko Haya or Nikita Krylov or anybody, they end up coming back and winning the fight. However, I do think the UFC is sort of writing off Lena Landsberg. She's at +315. She's facing Macy Chiasson. I mean, we know the drill here, though, Joe. Macy's getting the push. They can refer to her opponent as former UFC title challenger. Like it's simple, it's easy, it's fair booking. She is a bantamweight, but my God, at some point you got to imagine that if Chiasson wants, she can just bump up and fight at 145. But she is a major favorite here, and understandably so with how she's looked over her last 2 fights.
Yeah, of course. But at the same time, she's fighting, even though neither you and I are the biggest Lena Landsberg fans, she's got 13 fights on her record.
Yeah.
That's experience. And Macy's got 5, right? So one's going into their 14th fight, one's going into their 6th fight. And I think experience could make a difference here. Now, Macy's strong as an ox. Yeah, we'll see how Lena, has to deal with that. Remember, she's 37. Okay, she's not young by MMA standards, right? So at 37 years old, it's going to be an interesting fight. We're talking about Macy being at 28. That youth factor is there. She's entering her prime, whereas Lena isn't so much in her prime. So leaning towards Macy just on that factor alone is one thing, but it remains to be seen. This is a woman that's got 5 fights, 4 finishes, 2 by knockout, 2 by submission. It's going to be a pretty good fight, but don't count out the veteran just yet.
Some more good fights on this card. OSP, a plus 190 rather, against Mikhail Alexichek. I dig Alexichek. I think that he's got a lot of upside. OSP, though, anytime we preview a fight, I like to bring up something that I thought that John Jones brought up that was just fascinating. And when John Jones really breaks down fights, you see part of the reason he's so successful, Joe. He is like a fight scientist. He really gets it. He listens to his coaches. He said that the reason that OSP was so difficult for him to finish, and he couldn't, is because OSP, despite his age and his experience level, is still so raw and green in some areas that it's hard for John Jones to know what OSP is going to do next, because OSP doesn't even know what he's going to do next. When you have a guy like Daniel Cormier, you have guys like Alexander Gustafsson, they have tendencies, they have strengths, they have weaknesses. They avoid those weaknesses. They accentuate those positives. They hide the negatives. OSP is like, I got what I got, and I'm going to throw it at you. Here you go. We'll see if it works. I think that OSP is probably losing this, and that's that. I mean, he's lost 3 of his last 4. He lost to Krylov. He lost to Reyes. He lost to Latifi. The only win he has against Tyson Pedro. So if you don't have a half-decent or competent ground game, you're probably getting beat by him. I've not seen a ton out of Alexichek's ground game, so I'm not ruling out the possibility of a straight arm lock finishing this. But I think Alexichek takes this win, and I think he probably finishes it early, Joe.
Interesting to note, I like this fight because on paper, I think I think he wins his fight. But every time OSP gets on top of somebody, we're always like, uh-oh. Or anytime somebody gets a guillotine on the OSP, we all know the drill. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Is this person going to let go of this thing? And this is what, I'm sure this guy drills it and has been drilling it for years and years and years. He wants people to go for the guillotine so he can get the takedown, so he can trap the glove and trap the hand and then go for the, that Von Flue. So remains to be seen.
Yeah, I love that. And the thing is, if you don't have a ground game, that is always a threat. He is able to use that as an offensive maneuver, that the Von Flue choke. And we've talked about it. We joked about it for the first couple of years of this show until he turned it into a legit offensive move that he has perfected. It used to be you had to put yourself in that move to get tapped out by it. Now, if you give him a half a second, which any normal MMA fighter would do, he's going to lock that on. He's going to pin your hand between his traps and his shoulders, and that's it. You're not going to get out of it. There's nothing that you can do there. And I really love this fight as far as from a booking perspective. I also like Ian Cutelaba, a guy I've been high on for a while, against Khalil Roundtree, a guy who's really coming into his own. I like this 205-pound booking between that fight and the OSP Alexichek fight. Just real good stuff. And we're finally, I don't want to say finally, but we're seeing the wheels in motion. We're starting to see some of these guys get matched up accordingly. And I put over the 205-pound division for a while. I spoke to WWE wrestler Big E, and he was like, man, I love that division. I think it's great. He's like, a lot of people act like it's just a bunch of old guys, but it's not. There's young blood emerging. We're seeing that here. Will Roundtree continue the hot streak, or will Cutelaba get back on track?
I think Roundtree wins this fight. I think Roundtree definitely wins this fight here.
He's amazing lately, hasn't he?
Yeah, man, he's so explosive. I take nothing from Cutelaba, but I just like Roundtree in this fight. I mean, Khalil is just fast, powerful, explodes. It's MMA, bro. We know what's going to happen. It's just craziness. But at the same time, if we're looking at it this way here, we got to make predictions. I'm going to go with Khalil in this one.
Yeah, and just another good booking that I'm just excited about, if you couldn't tell. Also, Gunnar Nelson, plus 125. Gilbert Burns, a minus 145. Gunnar Nelson, the hype has died down significantly in recent years, but he can still be very fun to watch. Gilbert Burns in that same category of fun to watch. Who do you have winning this?
Well, I'm gonna have to go personal here. First of all, it's considered a grappler versus grappler fight. So right there, it makes it my favorite fight on this card, right? So I mean, Gilbert stepping in for Thiago Alves is one thing. But these two guys with the jiu-jitsu is one thing. Jiu-jitsu for MMA is another thing. Gunnar Nelson is just that fighter that once he gets on top of you, won't stop. And this will be a huge statement for Gilbert Burns because, Gilbert in general, when he competes, for the most part, I mean, do the math, right? The guy doesn't fight in this division. Oh, he does. Sorry, I was thinking it was a brother. In speaking with Gilbert, the last time I saw him was a couple of months ago. This guy is one of my faves in the game. Funny, hilarious. I was there in Kazakhstan when he was throwing snowballs to Stefan Struve's face, and I'm caught in the middle. These guys are going nuts on each other because they're also good friends. But I like this fight a lot. I like the fact that Gilbert's so proud that he took this fight, and he wants to send a message that, you know what, I can take these fights on short notice and work my way up in the rankings. So I'm going to go with Gilbert in this fight.
The main event of this show, Jack Hermansson against Jared Cannonier, a plus 195 is Cannonier. Hermansson, a minus 235. I like the fight. I don't like it as a main event. I just don't. Man, it's just why? Why? That's okay. It's a good fight. Two very good fighters. I have Hermansson winning this. How do you see it?
Well, ever since Hermansson beat Jacare, kind of put him on the map for everyone to pay attention to. But now we're looking at Jacare and thinking, well, has he really sort of subsided with his MMA game because he's dropping down the rankings? And then you got Jared who takes out Anderson Silva with the leg kick, and you're just kind of like, what's going on here? Which one of these guys is for real? And we're about to find out. And if you ask me, I'm going with Hermansson.